Captain Jake Morrison stood at the observation deck of Earth Defense Station Luna, watching another Galactic Confederation ship leave Earth's orbit with a cargo hold full of human goods. The massive alien vessel moved slowly, almost mockingly, as if its crew knew no human could stop them from taking whatever they wanted. Jake's hands pressed against the cold metal railing as he counted the third ship this week to leave with food supplies that Earth's colonies desperately needed. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez approached from behind, her footsteps echoing in the empty corridor. She carried a data pad that glowed with red warning signals, and her face showed the same frustration that Jake felt burning in his chest. The Confederation had just announced new restrictions on human communication networks, cutting off their access to quantum channels that connected the outer colonies to Earth. Amy handed him the datapad without a word. Jake read the official notice from the Confederation Council, written in the cold, formal language that aliens used when they wanted to remind humans of their place in the galaxy. The message was simple and cruel. Humans had violated trade agreements by requesting better terms for their grain exports. As punishment, they would lose all long-range communication privileges for 6 months. 6 months of silence from the outer colonies meant 6 months of not knowing if their people were alive or dead. It meant parents on Earth would not hear from their children working the mines of Kepler 442b. It meant doctors could not share medical research with colleagues treating diseases on distant worlds. The Confederation knew this would hurt, and that was exactly why they did it. Jake walked to the communication center, where Sergeant Rob Turner was already trying to reach the colonies through backup channels. The young engineer's fingers moved quickly over the controls, but every frequency showed the same result. The Confederation had placed blocking satellites around every human world, cutting them off from each other like islands in an endless ocean. On Mars, Governor Pete Collins was dealing with his own crisis. The Confederation patrol ships had stopped 3 supply convoys in the past week, claiming the human vessels had entered restricted space. The truth was simpler and more painful. The aliens were slowly starving the human colonies, making them weak and dependent. Pete stared at his empty food warehouses and wondered how long his people could survive on recycled nutrients and artificial proteins. Dr. Lisa Bennett had spent 20 years studying alien psychology, trying to understand why the Confederation treated humans like dangerous children. She worked in the xenobiology lab beneath Luna Station, surrounded by samples and data from dozens of alien species. For 2 decades, she had believed that patience and understanding would eventually earn humanity respect in the galactic community. That belief died the day she received news from her daughter's colony. The message had come through unofficial channels, smuggled by a sympathetic trader who risked his life to deliver it. Dr. Bennett's daughter Sarah managed a research station on Kepler 442b, where human scientists studied alien plant life to develop new medicines. The Confederation had declared the research illegal and ordered the humans to stop their work. When Sarah refused, they cut off all supply shipments to the colony. 300 people lived on that research station, including 50 children. Without regular supply drops, they would run out of basic necessities within months. The Confederation's message was clear: obey or watch your families die slowly. Commander Tony Hayes ran the underground network that most humans pretended did not exist. His people worked in secret, gathering information about Confederation activities and preparing for the day when humanity might need to defend itself. Tony had contacts throughout human space, former military officers who remembered when Earth had its own army before the Confederation disbanded all human military forces. The intelligence that Tony gathered painted a dark picture of humanity's future in the galaxy. The Confederation did not see humans as equals or even as useful servants. They saw humans as a threat that needed to be controlled and eventually eliminated. Every restriction, every punishment, every act of cruelty was part of a larger plan. To break human spirit and human unity, the breaking point came on a Tuesday morning when Jake received an emergency transmission from the medical transport ship Mercy. Captain Dan Price was leading a convoy of 3 ships carrying vaccines to a colony suffering from a plague outbreak. The disease had already killed dozens of children, and without the vaccines, hundreds more would die. The Confederation patrol intercepted the convoy at the edge of human space and ordered them to turn back. Captain Price explained that people were dying and begged for permission to continue. The alien commander's response was to open fire on the lead transport ship, destroying it completely along with half the vaccine supply. Jake watched the recorded message from Captain Price's final transmission. The man's voice shook with rage and grief as he described watching his ship explode, taking with it the only hope for saving the dying children. The Confederation claimed the humans had violated airspace restrictions and brought the attack on themselves. 300 children died in the plague outbreak that followed. 300 small coffins were buried, while Confederation ships patrolled overhead, making sure no unauthorized medical supplies reached the colony. The aliens had made their point. Human lives meant nothing to them. Dr. Bennett stood in the VOT observation lounge of Luna Station, staring at the stars where her daughter waited for supplies that would never come. Amy Rodriguez sat at her communication station, listening to the silence from colonies that could no longer call for help. Governor Collins walked through empty warehouses on Mars, calculating how many days his people could survive. But something had changed in the way. Humans looked at each other and at their alien overlords. The fear was still there, but it was mixed with something darker and more dangerous. Jake Morrison felt it burning in his chest as he watched another Confederation ship leave Earth's orbit with stolen food. Commander Hayes felt it in the coded messages from his contacts across human space. They were all feeling the same thing. They were done being afraid. They were done begging for scraps. They were done watching their children die while aliens decided their fate. The Confederation had pushed humanity too hard, and now they were about to discover what happened when humans stopped holding back their true nature. Dr. Lisa Bennett made the discovery that changed everything while examining a piece of confiscated alien technology in her lab beneath Luna Station. She had been studying the device for weeks, trying to understand why the Confederation was so interested in keeping it away from human hands. The device looked simple enough, just a small crystal matrix connected to a network of thin wires. But the energy readings were unlike anything she had seen before. When she finally cracked the devices, encryption, the truth hit her like a physical blow. The crystal was not a communication device or a weapon as she had expected. It was a neural suppression field generator, and according to its internal logs, there were thousands of similar devices scattered throughout human space. Every human world, every space station, every ship route was covered by these invisible fields that had been affecting human minds for 50 years. The suppression fields did not control human thoughts or emotions, but they did something far more subtle and dangerous. They limited human cognitive potential, making it harder for people to make intuitive leaps in science and technology. They dampened the natural human ability to see patterns and connections that other species missed. For 5 decades, the Confederation had been artificially keeping humanity stupid. Lisa's hands shook as she read the technical specifications. The fields were calibrated specifically for human brain patterns, designed to suppress the neural pathways that made humans so adaptable and creative. The Confederation had not just been limiting human technology and resources. They had been limiting the human mind itself. She immediately contacted Jake Morrison, who was reviewing patrol reports in his office above the station. When Jake saw the data, his face went pale and his jaw clenched so tight that Amy Rodriguez could hear his teeth grinding from across the room. The implications were staggering. Every human achievement over the past 50 years had been accomplished while fighting against artificial mental limitations. Jake called an emergency meeting with his senior, Staff and Commander Tony Hayes. They gathered in the secure briefing room deep inside Luna Station, where the walls were lined with signal-blocking materials to prevent alien surveillance. When Lisa explained her discovery, the room fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Rob Turner was the first to speak, his voice filled with wonder and rage. If the suppression fields were real, then human engineers had been working with only a fraction of their natural abilities. He had always felt like there were solutions to problems just beyond his reach, ideas that seemed to slip away whenever he got close to breakthrough discoveries. Now he knew why. Tony Hayes pulled up classified reports from his network of contacts throughout human space. The pattern was obvious once they knew what to look for. Every time a human scientist got close to a major technological breakthrough, they would suddenly lose focus or make crucial errors that set their research back by months or years. Every time human engineers designed ships or weapons that approached Confederation standards, critical components would fail during testing. The Confederation had been playing a 50-year game of keeping humanity just advanced enough to be useful, but never advanced enough to be independent. They had turned humans into a species of permanent children, always looking to their alien guardians for guidance and protection. Jake made the decision that would change human history. Working with Rob Turner and a team of loyal engineers, they began secretly mapping the suppression field network around Earth and Luna. The fields were generated by small satellites that looked like navigation beacons, hidden in plain sight among the legitimate space infrastructure. The first satellite they disabled was orbiting Luna Station itself. Rob Turner suited up in a maintenance pod and approached the device, carefully cutting power to its neural suppression systems while leaving its navigation functions intact. The Confederation monitors would see a brief power fluctuation, nothing more suspicious than routine maintenance. Within hours of the first field going offline, the humans working in Luna Station began to notice changes. Engineers found solutions to problems that had puzzled them for years. Scientists made connections between seemingly unrelated pieces of data. Even the maintenance staff started suggesting improvements to station systems that no one had thought of before. Dr. Lisa Bennett felt the change most dramatically in her own research. With the suppression field gone, she could suddenly see patterns in alien psychology and technology that had been invisible to her before. The Confederation species were not more advanced than humans. They were simply more specialized, each race excelling in one particular area, while humans had the potential to excel in everything. Amy Rodriguez experienced the awakening while working on communication systems. For years, she had been frustrated by the limitations of human quantum communication technology. With the suppression field disabled, she suddenly understood how to modify the existing systems to create faster-than-light communication that did not rely on Confederation networks. Jake authorized the secret mission to disable more suppression satellites. Teams of engineers in stealth suits moved carefully through space around Earth and Luna, shutting down the neural barriers that had kept humanity in mental chains. Each disabled field created a ripple effect as more humans regained their full cognitive potential. On Mars, Governor Pete Collins noticed that his engineering teams were suddenly solving supply problems with innovative solutions. They were finding ways to stretch food supplies, improve air recycling systems, and even manufacture replacement parts for equipment that the Confederation claimed could only be serviced by alien technicians. The awakening spread to human colonies throughout space as Tony Hayes coordinated with resistance cells to disable suppression networks. On the mining world of Proxima Centauri, human workers began extracting rare metals using techniques that exceeded Confederation efficiency by 300%. On the agricultural colonies, farmers developed crop strains that could grow in previously impossible conditions. Dr. Kevin Price, working from a research station near Jupiter, achieved the breakthrough that proved humanity's true potential. With the suppression fields gone, he developed a form of faster-than-light communication that did not require the exotic materials the Confederation controlled. Human colonies could now communicate with each other instantly across any distance. Without alien permission or oversight. The revelation went beyond just technology and engineering. Human artists freed from neural suppression began creating works that moved alien observers to tears. Human philosophers developed new ways of thinking about consciousness and existence that challenged galactic understanding. Human children in schools began learning at rates that amazed their teachers. But the most important discovery came from analyzing this suppression field technology itself. Dr. Lisa Bennett found manufacturing codes that revealed where the devices had been built and when they had been deployed. The neural suppression of humanity had been planned before first contact was even made. The Confederation had decided to limit human potential from the very moment they discovered that humans existed. Jake Morrison stood in the observation deck of Luna Station, watching Earth turn slowly beneath him. The planet looked the same as it had a month ago, but everything had changed. Humanity was waking up from a 50-year dream of artificial limitation. They were remembering what they were truly capable of achieving. Commander Tony Hayes received reports from his contacts throughout human space. The pattern was consistent everywhere the suppression fields had been disabled. Humans were not just recovering their natural abilities. They were exceeding them, as if 5 decades of artificial restraint had created a pressure that was now explosively released. The Confederation had made a fatal error in their treatment of humanity. They had assumed that suppressed humans represented normal human capability. They had no idea what humans could accomplish when their minds were truly free. Soon, they would learn that lesson in ways they never expected. The technological renaissance began 3 months after the first suppression fields went offline. Engineer Susan Walsh, working from a hidden facility in the asteroid belt, achieved something the Confederation had declared impossible for primitive species. She developed ships that could fold space without using the rare quantum crystals that aliens controlled. Her breakthrough came not from studying alien technology, but from understanding mathematics that human minds could finally grasp without artificial limitations. Jake Morrison received the first reports of the space folding tests with a mixture of amazement and grim satisfaction. The test ship had traveled from the asteroid belt to Pluto in 17 minutes, a journey that should have taken months using conventional human propulsion. More importantly, the Confederation monitoring stations had not detected the ship's movement at all. Humanity now had true faster-than-light travel that aliens could not track or control. Dr. Danny Clark, working with a team of physicists on Luna Station, made the next breakthrough that would reshape human understanding of warfare. With their minds free from suppression, they developed weapons that manipulated gravity itself. The gravity weapons could crush enemy ships without touching them or create protective barriers that deflected any physical attack. Even more revolutionary, the weapons required no exotic materials, only human engineering and mathematics. Amy Rodriguez led the first mission to re-establish contact with the outer colonies using the new space-folding ships. What she found in the Proxima Centauri system exceeded every expectation. Colony leader Frank Miller met her ship at the edge of the system with a fleet of vessels that looked like nothing in human or alien design databases. Frank explained that the Proxima colonies had been living without Confederation oversight for 2 years, since the aliens had written them off as too remote to monitor effectively. Without suppression fields and without alien interference, the colonists had developed at an incredible pace. They had built cities that floated in the atmospheres of gas giants, harvesting energy directly from storm systems that generated more power than Earth's entire industrial grid. The colonists had also solved the problem of hostile environments by developing biotechnology that allowed humans to survive anywhere. Modified humans could breathe methane atmospheres, withstand crushing gravity, and even survive in the vacuum of space for limited periods. They had not changed human nature, but they had expanded human capability beyond anything the galaxy had. Scene. Jake Morrison walked through the floating city of New Horizon, suspended in the clouds of Proxima Centauri's gas giant. The city housed 50,000 people who lived and worked in an environment that would have killed unprotected humans instantly. Children played in parks where the air was mostly hydrogen, while their parents worked in factories that manufactured materials stronger than anything in Confederation databases. Dr. Lisa Bennett studied the psychological effects of humanity's awakening and made discoveries that explained why the Confederation feared them so much. Every other intelligent species in the galaxy was specialized. The crystalline Vectari were masters of energy manipulation, but poor at biological sciences. The hive-minded Zelfins excelled at collective projects, but struggled with individual creativity. The plant-like Corvani understood biotechnology, but could not comprehend mechanical engineering. Humans were different. They learned from every species they encountered and improved upon their techniques. A human engineer could study Vectari energy systems and find ways to make them more efficient. A human biologist could examine Corvani genetics and develop applications the original creators never imagined. Humans were not just adaptable, they were universally capable of excellence in any field they chose to pursue. The Confederation sent an ultimatum through Ambassador Krell9 of the Vectari. The message was delivered to Luna Station with all the ceremonial authority that aliens used for their most serious communications. Humanity had 30 days to submit to complete Confederation oversight. All human technology development would be supervised by alien monitors. All human population growth would be controlled by alien administrators. All human movement between worlds would require alien permission. The alternative was military action to bring humanity into compliance with galactic law. The Confederation had 800 species under their control and fleets that numbered in the hundreds of thousands. Humanity had 300 million people scattered across a dozen worlds with no formal military and no weapons that could threaten alien dreadnoughts. President Ellen Harper's response was broadcast simultaneously across every human world and colony. She stood in the chambers of the Earth Colonial Council, surrounded by representatives from every human settlement in known space. Her words were simple and carried the weight of an entire species that had finally remembered what they were capable of achieving. "We tried diplomacy," she said, her voice carrying clearly through quantum communication networks that the Confederation could no longer monitor or control. "We tried compliance. We tried begging for scraps from tables where we should have been equals. We are done with all of that. The galaxy will learn what happens when you pressure humanity too hard." Amy Rodriguez coordinated the Great Awakening from Luna Station, sending signals to human colonies throughout space. The signals activated technologies that humans had been secretly developing for months, hidden from Confederation sensors by the same stealth techniques they had learned from studying alien cloaking systems around the mining world of Kepler 442b. Orbital defense platforms that aliens thought were disabled mining stations suddenly powered up with energy readings that exceeded anything in Confederation databases. The platforms were armed with gravity weapons that could destroy ships at ranges the aliens considered impossible. In the asteroid belt, construction facilities that had been building mining equipment revealed their true purpose. They had been manufacturing ships designed for war, but not the kind of war the Confederation understood. The human vessels were small and fast, designed to work in coordinated swarms that could overwhelm larger enemy ships through speed and unpredictability. Commander Tony Hayes received confirmation signals from resistance cells throughout human space. Every major colony had been secretly preparing for this moment. Hidden factories had been producing weapons and ships. Underground bunkers had been stockpiling supplies for extended conflicts. Most importantly, every human settlement had been training their people for the war that everyone knew was coming. The Confederation response was swift and predictable. Admiral Kess Prime of the Zelthan Collective assembled the largest fleet in galactic history and began moving toward Earth. 800 ships of various alien designs, carrying enough firepower to sterilize entire planets, prepared to teach humanity the price of defiance. Jake Morrison, newly promoted to Fleet Admiral of humanity's first official military in 50 years, prepared to meet them. His fleet was smaller, with only 200 ships of human design, but every vessel incorporated technologies that aliens had never seen and could not understand. More importantly, every ship was crewed by humans who had spent their entire lives adapting to impossible situations and finding ways to win against overwhelming odds. Dr. Maria Santos unveiled humanity's final surprise in the hours before the Confederation fleet reached Earth. She had developed energy shields that did not just protect ships from enemy fire but actually absorbed the energy of incoming attacks and redirected it back at the attackers. The more firepower the aliens used against human ships, the stronger the human defenses became. The message went out across human space on every frequency and through every communication network. After 50 years of suppression and servitude, humanity was ready to show the galaxy what they were truly capable of achieving. The Confederation had wanted to keep humans as permanent children, dependent on alien guidance and control. Instead, they had created something far more dangerous. They had created a species that remembered how to fight for their freedom and had the technology to win that fight against impossible odds. The galaxy was about to learn why the Confederation had worked so hard to keep humanity suppressed and why that suppression had ultimately failed. The Confederation fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system like a storm of metal and energy that blotted out the stars. Admiral Kess Prime commanded 800 ships from the bridge of the massive dreadnought Eternal Dominion, a vessel so large that it could house entire cities within its hull. The alien commander had crushed 17 rebellions during his long career, and he expected humanity to surrender the moment they saw the overwhelming force arrayed against them. Fleet Admiral Jake Morrison met the alien armada with humanity's first official war fleet, 200 ships that looked small and fragile compared to the massive alien vessels. Each human ship was unique, designed by individual engineers who had been free to explore their creativity without alien interference. Some ships were sleek and fast, others were heavily armored, but all of them shared one characteristic that no alien vessel possessed. They were unpredictable. The battle began when Admiral Kess Prime broadcast a final surrender demand to the human fleet. Jake's response was to order an immediate attack against impossible odds. The human ships scattered in all directions, moving in patterns that confused alien targeting systems designed to track orderly formations. Within minutes, the carefully organized Confederation battle line was dealing with threats coming from dozens of different angles. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez commanded the attack ship UESS Defiance, a vessel that perfectly embodied the human approach to warfare. Her ship was fast enough to outrun alien interceptors, but heavily armed enough to damage vessels 10 times its size. Amy had spent months training her crew to think like individuals rather than following standard military doctrine, and that training showed in their first engagement. The Defiance approached a Confederation cruiser at maximum speed, firing gravity, weapons that the aliens could not deflect or counter. As the enemy ship began to collapse under artificially generated gravitational forces, Amy ordered her crew to execute a maneuver that no alien commander would have attempted. They rammed their ship directly into the cruiser's hull, but activated space-folding drives at the moment of impact. Defiance disappeared from normal space just before collision and reappeared behind the Confederation battle line. The destroyed cruiser's wreckage continued forward at tremendous speed, crashing into 2 more alien ships and crippling them beyond repair. In 30 seconds, Amy had destroyed 3 enemy vessels while suffering no damage to her own ship. Admiral Kess Prime watched his orderly battle plan dissolve into chaos as human ships appeared and disappeared throughout the combat zone. The aliens had prepared for a conventional engagement between organized fleets, but humans were fighting like a swarm of angry insects that attacked from every direction at once. Each human ship moved independently, making tactical decisions that the hive-minded aliens could not predict or counter. Commander Carl Brooks led a squadron of modified mining ships that had been converted into mobile weapon platforms. His vessels looked like industrial equipment to alien sensors, but they carried gravity bombs powerful enough to tear apart dreadnoughts. Carl's ships approached the enemy fleet while broadcasting distress signals, claiming to be civilian vessels trying to escape the combat zone. The Confederation ships ignored the apparent civilian traffic, focusing their attention on the obvious military targets. This mistake cost them dearly when Carl's squadron suddenly revealed their true nature. Gravity bombs deployed from hidden launchers, creating artificial black holes that pulled enemy ships out of formation and into catastrophic collisions with each other. The second wave of the Confederation attack targeted human colonies, expecting to find easy victories against agricultural settlements defended by primitive weapons. The alien commanders had studied intelligence reports describing human colonies as peaceful farming communities with minimal defenses. What they found instead were fortress worlds where every farmer was also a trained soldier. Governor Pete Collins led the defense of Mars from a command center buried deep beneath the planet's surface. The red planet had been transformed into a weapon during the months of preparation. Massive magnetic accelerators launched chunks of iron ore at near-light speed, turning simple mining equipment into planet-killing artillery. The alien fleet approaching Mars found themselves under bombardment from the planet itself. Dr. Gani Clark's gravity weapons proved their worth in the space around Mars as human defense platforms, created localized gravitational anomalies that pulled enemy ships into planetary collision courses. Alien vessels that had survived centuries of conventional warfare were destroyed by weapons that manipulated the fundamental forces of the universe in ways their designers had never imagined. The mining world of Kepler 442b provided the war's most shocking moment when alien landing forces discovered that human miners had spent years preparing underground defensive networks. What appeared to be simple mining tunnels were actually sophisticated military installations connected by transport systems that allowed defenders to appear anywhere on the planet's surface within minutes. Colony leader Frank Miller coordinated the defense from a command post that had been disguised as a mining office. His people had turned every piece of industrial equipment into weapons of war. Ore processors became projectile launchers, atmospheric processors became chemical weapon factories, and mining robots became autonomous soldiers that could operate in environments too dangerous for biological troops. The Confederation ground forces found themselves fighting an enemy that knew every tunnel, every cave, and every hiding place on the planet. Human defenders would attack from underground, disappear into mining shafts, and emerge behind enemy lines to strike again. The aliens had superior numbers and better individual weapons, but they were fighting humans on ground that had been prepared specifically for defensive warfare. Dr. Maria Santos observed the battle from Luna Station and realized that humanity's greatest advantage was not their new technology, but their fundamental nature. Every other species in the galaxy fought as a collective, following predetermined strategies and responding predictably to changing situations. Humans fought as individuals who could adapt instantly to new circumstances. The space battle around Earth demonstrated this advantage most clearly when Amy Rodriguez's ship was damaged by alien fire and began losing power. Instead of retreating or calling for support, she made a decision that no alien commander could have anticipated. Amy ordered her crew to abandon ship while she piloted the powerless vessel on a collision course with the enemy flagship. Admiral Kess Prime detected the approach of the apparently crippled human ship, but dismissed it as a desperate and futile gesture. The Eternal Dominion was protected by shields that could deflect asteroid impacts, and one small human vessel posed no threat to its massive bulk. The alien commander's mistake was assuming that Amy was planning a simple ramming attack. At the last possible moment, Amy activated the ship's experimental weapon systems, devices that Dr. Santos had developed from studying captured Confederation technology. The U's Defiance became a temporary black hole generator, creating a gravitational anomaly that tore a gap in reality itself. The flagship Eternal Dominion was pulled into folded space and disappeared from the universe entirely, taking Admiral Kess Prime and 10,000 alien crew members with it. The destruction of their flagship broke the Confederation fleet's morale and coordination. Ships that had fought together for centuries suddenly found themselves without central command or unified purpose. Human vessels pressed their advantage, using their superior mobility and adaptability to hunt down enemy ships that could no longer function as an organized force. Commander Tony Hayes coordinated human intelligence networks throughout the battle, providing real-time information about enemy movements and weaknesses. His people had spent years infiltrating Confederation communication systems, and now they used that access to spread confusion and false orders among the alien fleet. The first phase of the war ended with the surviving Confederation ships retreating in disorder toward the edge of the Sol system. Less than half of the original invasion force remained operational, and those ships were damaged and demoralized. The aliens had expected to crush a primitive rebellion in a matter of hours, but instead they had suffered the worst military defeat in galactic history. Jake Morrison surveyed the battlefield from the bridge of his flagship, watching alien ships disappear into hyperspace as they fled from human weapons and human determination. The victory had cost humanity dearly, with dozens of ships destroyed and thousands of brave people killed. But they had proven something that would echo throughout the galaxy. The Confederation's greatest fear had been realized. Humanity was not just capable of defending themselves, they were capable of winning against impossible odds through sheer adaptability and refusal to surrender. The galaxy's most powerful military force had been defeated by a species they had dismissed as primitive children, and the news of that defeat would spread to every world under Confederation control. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, President Ellen Harper stood at the podium of the former Confederation Council chambers, addressing representatives from every species in the known galaxy. The massive building on the capital world of Zentris had once been the symbol of alien dominance over hundreds of civilizations, but now it housed the first truly democratic assembly in galactic history. Human peacekeeping ships orbited overhead, not as conquerors, but as protectors of the new order. The transformation had been swift and decisive. Within weeks of the Confederation fleet's defeat, oppressed species throughout the galaxy had risen in rebellion against their alien overlords. The crystalline Victari, who had ruled through energy manipulation for 3,000 years, found their power stations sabotaged by their own enslaved workers. The hive-minded Zelthans discovered that individual thought was more contagious than they had ever imagined. Fleet Admiral Jake Morrison commanded the largest military force in galactic history, but his orders were unlike anything the galaxy had seen from a conquering power. Instead of subjugating defeated enemies, human forces were liberating species that had been suppressed for millennia. Instead of looting conquered worlds, human engineers were sharing technology that had been restricted to the ruling classes. Rodriguez, now promoted to admiral, led exploration fleets that pushed beyond the borders of known space. With human determination and the combined knowledge of dozens of liberated species, her ships discovered new galaxies, new civilizations, and new challenges that awaited a united galactic community. A spirit of exploration that had once been suppressed in humanity now spread to every species they encountered. Dr. Lisa Bennett established the Institute for Species Development on the former Confederation capital world, where human teachers worked with scientists from every known civilization. The Institute's mission was simple but revolutionary: to help every species reach their full potential without artificial limitations. The Vectari learned that they could manipulate matter as well as energy. The Zelfins discovered that individual creativity could enhance rather than threaten collective consciousness. The Corvani, plant people, were perhaps the most dramatic example of what liberation could achieve. Under Confederation rule, they had been restricted to biological sciences and forbidden from studying mechanical engineering. With human guidance, they combined their natural understanding of genetics with human technological knowledge to create living ships that could grow and repair themselves while traveling between stars. Commander Tony Hayes, now Director of Galactic Intelligence, worked to uncover the full scope of Confederation crimes against the galaxy's civilizations. His investigation revealed that dozens of species had been artificially limited in their development, their potential stolen by the ruling powers who feared competition. The systematic suppression of entire civilizations made humanity's 50 years of neural limitation seem almost gentle by comparison. Rob Turner led the greatest engineering project in galactic history, the construction of communication networks that connected every world in known space. Unlike the Confederation's restricted quantum channels, the new human-designed system was open to all species and could not be controlled by any single government. For the first time in galactic history, beings from different worlds could speak directly to each other without alien oversight. The former Confederation leadership faced trials for their crimes against galactic civilization. The proceedings were conducted with human concepts of justice that seemed revolutionary to species accustomed to rule by force. Former Admiral Kes Prime, one of the few surviving Confederation commanders, testified about the systematic suppression of younger species and the plans for genocide that had been developed against humanity. Dr. Danny Clark continued his physics research in partnership with scientists from dozens of species, developing technologies that surpassed anything the Confederation had achieved. His gravity manipulation techniques, combined with Vectari energy systems and Corvani biotechnology, created possibilities that no single species could have imagined. The galaxy was entering an age of unprecedented scientific advancement. Governor Pete Collins transformed Mars into the galaxy's premier center for interspecies cooperation. The Red Planet became home to representatives from every known civilization, working together on projects that benefited all species. Former enemies collaborated on terraforming techniques that could create garden worlds from barren rock, and shared technologies that could support life in any environment. The most remarkable change was visible in the children of all species, who grew up in the new galactic order. Human children played alongside young Vectari, learning energy manipulation while teaching mathematical concepts that crystal beings had never considered. Zelfin larvae developed individual personalities, while maintaining their connection to the collective consciousness. Young Corvani grew up understanding both biological and mechanical systems as parts of a greater whole. Frank Miller expanded the floating cities of Proxima Centauri into a network of mobile habitats that could travel between star systems, carrying populations to new worlds where they could build better lives. The cities became symbols of human adaptability and the willingness to help others achieve their dreams of freedom and growth. Dr. Maria Santos developed new applications for her energy shield technology that protected not just ships, but entire worlds from natural disasters and hostile environments. Her defensive systems allowed previously uninhabitable worlds to support thriving colonies, expanding the living space available to all galactic civilizations. The trials of former Confederation officials revealed the depth of their fear of humanity and other adaptable species. Intelligence documents showed that the ruling council had debated complete extermination of humans on multiple occasions, held back only by the practical value of human labor and the fear that genocide might inspire rebellion in others suppressed species. Jake Morrison often stood in his garden on Earth, watching children from a dozen different species play together under skies that were cleaner and bluer than they had been in centuries. The planet had become a symbol of hope for the entire galaxy, proof that different civilizations could coexist and thrive together. When freed from artificial limitations and fear-based control, the new Galactic Assembly passed its first universal law, a simple statement that carried the weight of human values and the hopes of every liberated species. All intelligent beings have the right to grow, to learn, to explore, and to reach their full potential without artificial limitation or fear. The law was written in 700 languages and broadcast to every world in known space. Amy Rodriguez returned from her latest exploration mission with news that excited the entire galaxy. Beyond the edge of known space, her ships had discovered civilizations that had never fallen under Confederation control. These species had developed freely for millions of years, achieving levels of advancement that seemed almost magical to the liberated galaxy. More importantly, they welcomed contact with the new galactic community and offered to share their knowledge. The economic transformation was as dramatic as the political one. Under Confederation rule, resources had flowed upward to the ruling species while others struggled with artificial scarcity. Human economists introduced concepts of fair trade and mutual benefit that seemed revolutionary to beings who had known only exploitation. Worlds that had been kept in poverty for generations suddenly flourished as they gained access to technologies and markets previously restricted to the elite. Carl Brooks led the reconstruction efforts on worlds that had been damaged by centuries of Confederation strip mining and resource extraction. Using human engineering combined with alien biotechnology, his teams restored dead worlds to life and created ecosystems more diverse and stable than had existed before. The project became a symbol of what cooperation could achieve when species worked together toward common goals. The cultural renaissance was perhaps the most beautiful aspect of the new galactic order. Species that had been forbidden from expressing creativity under Confederation rule suddenly burst forth with art, music, literature, and philosophy that had been suppressed for millennia. Human artists collaborated with alien creators to produce works that no single species could have imagined, combining different ways of perceiving reality into unified expressions of beauty and meaning. Educational exchanges became common as beings from different worlds learned from each other's perspectives and abilities. Human children studying on Corvani worlds developed intuitive understanding of biological systems that complemented their natural technological aptitude. Young Vectari studying on Earth learned to apply their energy manipulation skills to problems their crystal-based minds had never considered. The military forces that had won the Liberation War transformed into something unprecedented in galactic history. Instead of conquest and oppression, human-led fleets focused on exploration, disaster relief, and protection of developing civilizations. When natural catastrophes threatened populated worlds, it was human ships that arrived first with aid and assistance. Commander Hayes uncovered the final secret of Confederation control when his teams accessed the deepest archives of the former ruling council. The evidence showed that the